Hi. Today's session is about cybersecurity in the gaming industry. I'm Jason Farrugia, the CTO of the Malta Gaming Authority. I've been working for approximately 9 to 10 years in the gaming industry with the Malta Gaming Authority. My background is in software development, but now since I'm the CTO, I handle other areas including software development, data security, and infrastructure. With me, I have Gaurav from Cloudfare. Maybe you can do the introduction, Gaurav.
Hi, my name is Gaurav. I am solutions engineer with Cloudflare. I manage the ASEAN team based out of Singapore office. I'm glad to be here.
Okay, so today we're discussing cybersecurity in the gaming industry. I mean, the gaming industry is a multi-billion-dollar global industry, and that, of course, attracts criminals. And with the COVID-19 situation, the closure of the physical casinos, there was also a halt in the sports betting. We've seen a huge shift to online casinos, making them more attractive to cyber criminals. In fact, online casinos, I mean, they are not simple e-commerce websites. They have more components than standard business. They have extensive databases containing customer data. They have multitude of gaming software. They have live gaming feeds, mobile virtual reality, AI chatbots, payment gateways, sign-up forms. I mean, they are also all potential opportunities for hackers and online fraudsters. So online casino operators need to ensure that each and every operation of their site is secure and protected, not just the login stage or the bet stage. In fact, I was reading some statistics published by a leading provider in cybersecurity, whereby in a 17-month period between 2017 and 2019, hackers have targeted the gaming industry by carrying out 12 billion credential stuffing attacks against gaming websites. This puts the gaming community among the fastest rising targets for credential stuffing attacks and one of the most lucrative targets for criminals looking to make a quick profit. I mean, these statistics also reveal that SQL injection attacks now represent nearly 2/3 of all the web application attacks, around 65%. This is not just a data loss issue, which, of course, on its own, it's a huge GDPR concern because of the requirements there are, but also other repercussions such as system downtime, making it unavailable to the customers, to the players, the bad reputation that you will have, and worse than that is the game integrity. I mean, I wouldn't place a bet with a company that was hacked. I mean, who knows what happened to the RNG, for example. So game integrity is also critical. Now, shifting to Gaurav, what are the cybersecurity trends and role of data in cybersecurity nowadays? Maybe you can take us through it.
Yeah, so at Cloudflare, we see traffic from 26 million properties. So as people are going through some sort of lockdown, the internet usage has increased. Obviously, more people are using internet for shopping, playing games, working remotely. So we have seen anywhere from 20 to 40% increase in terms of the internet usage worldwide. At the same time, we have also seen an increase in number of cyber attacks. So at Cloudflare, one of the things which we do is provide DDoS mitigation, so protecting from distributed denial of service attacks. So what we have seen in the Q1 is there is a considerable increase in number of cyber attacks, especially DDoS attacks, and the duration of those attacks. So one of the interesting trend is we have seen attacks which are less than 500 megabytes per second. So what hackers are doing is they're using smaller and small scale attacks to basically target multiple domains. So that's one of the trend we are seeing. Now, obviously, nowadays with the rise of IoT devices, it is very much easy to launch an DDoS attack. So as some of you might have heard about the Mirai botnet, for example, where the attackers used or hacked security or CCTV cameras to launch a DDoS attack. So there are tools available. And obviously there is an incentive to cyber criminals. So sometimes it's financial incentive. Sometimes it could be, I mean, there are government-sponsored attackers as well. So we are seeing an increase in number of DDoS attacks through our network. Now the question is, how do you protect from these kind of attacks? So what we have seen at Cloudflare is data is very important in order to mitigate such attacks. So the two major players or the two source of headaches are bots and phishing domains. So the bots, at any given time, we see more than 60% of the internet traffic coming from bots. Obviously, not all bots are bad. There are good bots, for example, search engine crawlers like Google, which everybody wants to cater to. But at the same time, the attackers deploy sophisticated bots to target the websites to bring it down. So, for example, stuff like credential stuffing or content spam is usually done with the help of these bots. So at Cloudflare, we see 26 million properties. We have 11 million requests per second going through our network. So what we try to do is we look into 250 request attributes and then use that data to essentially score every request that goes through our network. So with the help of this data and machine learning, we are able to identify if the request is coming from a human or a bot. So in context of Cloudflare, I mean, data is extremely important. The second area of concern is phishing domains. So now with the COVID situation, obviously attackers are taking use of this situation. So they use various tactics to basically have a user click on a phishing link. So although the right thing to do is obviously train your employees and have some sort of social engineering knowledge, but at the same time, from a technical standpoint, it is important to protect a user once they happen to click on a phishing domain. So one thing we do at Cloudflare is we take threat intelligence data from various sources, and so if one of your employees happen to click on a phishing domain, and if they're using Cloudflare gateway, which is the solution we call it, then you are able to protect that user from accessing that phishing domain. So obviously, like we are seeing more and more attacks, and we are leveraging data in order to fight those attacks.
Okay. So next, I want to talk a bit about the security compliance challenges that we have nowadays. The first challenge that I want to talk about is ethics and compliance. I mean, a lot of data that is used to gain insights can be attributed to personal individuals. Personally identifiable information can be found everywhere nowadays, sometimes even in unexpected places. Many consumers are not aware of how their data, their personal data is being used and what companies are doing with it. Concerns about the use of big data are also leading to ever stricter regulations on how the companies can collect, store, and use such information. Big data magnifies the security, the compliance, and the governance challenges that apply to normal data that we're used to. In addition to, of course, increasing the potential impact of data breaches. So organizations have to comply with regulations and legislation when collecting and processing data. I mean, while data protection legislation around the globe differs in certain aspects, it all shares the same basic principles. It's all about taking care of personal information, data privacy, and controlling how data is being used. Users have to be able to understand what data is being collected, the processing of the data, and it has to also be legitimized by, of course, user consent. Looking at the sheer amount of data companies have to process, protecting and managing this data is becoming more and more complicated nowadays. In fact, another challenge is poor data management, when basically there is no clear ownership for big data and there's poor control over its life cycle. Then data management, of course, becomes a true challenge. In fact, many companies tend to see security as a technology issue, meaning that, security is just another requirement that IT departments have to fulfill. And of course, it's a problem that can be solved by just buying yet another security solution, another piece of software or hardware. But great data governance is more than that. It starts at the top level, at the board level, at the executive level. They have to define the business goals for the use of big data together with, of course, the acceptable risk and the compliance requirements there are. There must be clearly defined responsibilities for the data, and its life cycle must be properly managed. In fact, to comply to data privacy regulations, the companies must be able to audit the way that the data is acquired, processed, analyzed, and secured, as well as the way the outcomes of the analytics, the data analytics are being used. Another challenge that we encounter nowadays is insecure infrastructure. Security by design is great, but looking at the vast amount of devices and infrastructure that produce data nowadays, many of them aren't constructed with security in mind, especially when it comes to these IoT devices. The limited ability to resist cyber attacks becomes even more problematic. Sometimes, in fact, you cannot even update or upgrade their defense mechanism. So that makes it, of course, more difficult to be in line with the latest cybersecurity trends. This could also, this could not only impact the trustworthiness of the data, it could also give the hackers the access to vulnerable infrastructure. In addition to this, the technology that is used to process this data was designed with massive scalability in mind, but not necessarily to enforce the security controls. So while the absence of security by design is nothing new, the complex big data environments only make things worse. There are enough vulnerabilities and backdoors in on-premises big data analytics environments, but with the use of cloud services, especially when it comes to these hybrid or multi-cloud environments, we've reached another level of complexity with new challenges, new risks. So, in fact, using out-of-the-box security delivered by the cloud providers and improperly set security controls can lead to exposed data on the internet. Also, additionally, data sent to cloud services is often unprotected, unfortunately. In fact, a lot of data breaches have occurred because the simplest countermeasures were not existent or not integrated properly within their infrastructure. To make sure this doesn't happen to you, adopting a privacy by design approach is crucial. You have to make sure that your data management is under control and that the data is protected anywhere it is used, stored, or in motion. Another thing is, what I'd like to suggest is pseudonymize whenever possible. Storing data about the person's identity is normal, but of course you should store it in an area that is fully partitioned and separate from other user data, so that if it gets tampered, at least the pseudonymization should help that the player data or the customer data is not identifiable. What I would like to ask you, Gaurav, now is what is the role of Cloudflare in meeting these compliance requirements that we have nowadays?
Yeah, so thanks for elaborating the challenges with regards to data security. So as you mentioned, now companies are deploying a multi-cloud and hybrid environment. So it's no longer just the data center where your data resides. And at the same time, from the user perspective, you are deploying multiple SaaS applications. Your users are accessing those applications not just from your physical desktop machines, but they are accessing from mobile devices, from anywhere in the world, right? So the challenge, so basically the network has evolved. Which requires you to adopt a new approach and new architecture in order to keep your data safe. So one of the things which we do at Cloudflare is we offer encryption end-to-end. So the first thing in order to make sure your data is safe is to use encryption to avoid any man-in-the-middle attacks. So back in 2014, Cloudflare made certificates free for all of the customers. We thought that was one of the reasons. The certificate cost was one of the obstacle for customers to use encryption, and with the free certificates, now everybody has that security. The second thing is, so as I mentioned, now your data resides in multiple environments. And there are, of course, vulnerabilities like SQL injection, which can be exploited by the hackers or attackers in order to get hold of that data. So having a solution like Web Application Firewall in front of your infrastructure is a good strategy to protect your data from application layer vulnerabilities. So at Cloudflare, we provide a fully managed web application firewall, which is something which we constantly update as we discover new vulnerabilities. So having a WAF in front of infrastructure will ensure that the hackers are not able to exploit vulnerabilities which might be there on your application. The next thing is now you also have to take care of the access to your applications. So far I was talking about securing your infrastructure with the help of encryption and WAF, but on the user side, you want to ensure that you are deploying the right controls, the right access controls, so that there is no insecure access to those applications. Now, one of the solutions which traditionally everybody uses is VPN. However, there are challenges with that approach. For example, now most of the workforce is working remotely, so that doesn't really scale very well. And also, as I mentioned, now there are multiple SaaS applications which are being deployed by every company. So the right solution, in our opinion, to protect your applications is to use a zero trust solution. So instead of relying on a network, you have to rely on the user identity. So using an identity management solution with a zero trust solution is the right way to make sure that you have correct access controls on your applications. The other thing about zero trust solution is it scales very well, and there is more control in terms of the application access. For example, in every organization, we use various set of applications. Everybody should not have access to every application. So using a zero trust solution, it's very easy to make sure that you're only giving access to the people who should have that access. The final thing is protecting your devices and the data which leaves your network, right? So again, as I mentioned, now that your workforce is remote, it's no longer your corporate network which needs to be secured. You also have to secure the devices from where the users are accessing this data, right? So typically there are like secure gateway solutions which will inspect the traffic leaving your network, right? So I mentioned about the phishing domains. So one of the things you can do is use a gateway solution like Cloudflare Gateway to make sure that if the employee happens to click on a phishing link by mistake, then the access to that domain is blocked at the gateway level, so that you don't run into the future problems. So in a nutshell, I think organizations have to think about how should they protect users, devices, and their infrastructure, and then utilize the tools to ensure the data sovereignty and data integrity.
In fact, I was going to mention that we're not quite at a point where machines can combat all cybercrime on their own. But I mean, through the help of artificial intelligence as well, nowadays we've seen significant advances in that direction. Unfortunately, we only have 20 minutes for this session allocated, so we have to conclude here. We have to basically end up this one. Maybe a conclusion from your end, Gaurav, as well, and we can conclude.
Yeah, so I think so with the rise in the number of cyber attacks, I think organizations have to think about their cybersecurity postures. and make sure they have right tools and controls in place to mitigate these threats and secure their data. So, so looking at solutions offered by Cloudflare and the similar companies would be a good start. And if you want to know more about what we do at Cloudflare, I'm happy to connect with you and share more information.
Thanks a lot. And with this one, we end up this session. Thank you. Thank you, SiGMA, for having us.